Well, hello and welcome to the wrap. This is the show rounded up all things Zwift from the last week, racing events, tech, fashion, you name it, and also an added section that we'll be doing every week called the Coach's Corner. We'll tell you all about that in a minute. This is episode number 57, Thursday, August 10th. I'm Nathan Guerra. Anna Russel is sat next to me virtually coming out of New Zealand. I'm out of the US of A, and we are live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. This is also a podcast you can download. Head on over to ZwiftCommunityLive.com, and you should be able to find it there, or search The Wrap and Zwift, and you should be able to find it pretty quickly anywhere that you do download your podcast. They're uploaded pretty quickly after the episode is recorded live. Today, as usual, we'll be talking about what we've been doing in the world of racing and training for just a little bit. Then we'll be chatting to the new section that is the Coach's Corner. That is a added topic we'll be having every week, as we are both coaches, and we figured why not add something to everybody's awesome list of things that they might be able to get out of this podcast. We'll be talking about the Zwift Racing League group Recon rides that have been added, which is going to be a really cool way for you to get to know teams out there in the community. Zwift Insider added a route list that you can actually download. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then Anna added in a little bit of a contention in here. Liking it. Steering and non-steering races. Is it fair as a topic? Always got to throw one in there, don't you? Nigerian Cycling Kit. Nigerian Cycling Kit is the kit pick of the week. Let us know what you think of it. Give us a rating out of 1 and 10. We'll do the same at the end of the show. Did I get it all, Anna? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I feel like these intros get longer and longer. I'm like sitting here while you're talking, having a big chat with Sweet the cyclist about the world champs and the women's race coming up. I don't know Sweet, but I'm like, this is someone I want to sit down and have a coffee with and just, I feel
He's
like I
been to
could
my
talk.
house. He's slept at my house.
Oh, well, did you spend like all night talking
We
about
had
like bike
philosophical
racing?
conversations. No, we
Yeah.
talked about the existence of God and like what's going on with politics.
Oh,
It got
wow.
deep real quick.
Oh, well, I bet Wild Van Art's wondering about the existence of God. Honestly, like I'm I wonder why I support him. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, we're not talking
Whoa, what's
anything. We're
going
not
on? What
talking
are we even talking? See, I asked, is there a topic we didn't check, or like, like, and all of a sudden it's like, well, Van Art, what's happening?
Oh, man, so like the men's road race, which it's a
Yeah,
pretty wild course, and it was quite good actually. Like I know that Zwift's Scotland route isn't an exact replica, but it felt familiar. Like the real punch they did where Vanderpool went, I was like, that really feels like the Clyde kicker. Like it
yeah,
really
totally.
feels like. So I was like, this is cool actually. Like you can get a feel for it. So anyway, yeah, like I just so Sweet saying because I'm going for Kopecky for the win in the women's race, but likely she'll just come second. And then why am I supporting these Belgians? Really, I just don't have no idea. But what have I been up to? I've been watching a bit of Worlds. I've had like sick kids, man, like two kids sick with two different things, and super. Well, you know, as a parent, you've got to like you can still like they're kind of old enough so I can zip downstairs and get on the bike, but young enough that I don't know what the night is going to be like ahead of us. So you've kind of got to do like energy management. It's like if I completely wreck myself, I could have a night of like 3 hours sleep ahead of me, and so that's probably not good. So I have to I've been in this like mindset all week of like, okay, don't like really empty the tank because you could pay for this tomorrow and also catch whatever they've got, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in a bit of self management, but I did the really last minute. My husband was working from home. I was like, I need like a mental health break. So I like literally in 5 minutes before it started went and did the WTRL duathlon. So it was it was good, man. It was like I've done a few of these before. 35 minutes just as hard as you can go on the bike. So it's like 35 minutes, go as far as you can go. And it's quite hard to settle into that, right? It's like
Oh yeah,
it's not
because the
like 20
duathlons
minutes.
are so help people understand that a little bit. Like, and this is a little bit of
Yes.
promotion if you like this kind of a race. That it's not just to align; it's whoever produces. I mean, this is almost as pure like what do you got versus what do you got kind of a situation because how
Oh,
much distance
yeah.
can you produce is all it comes down to.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's 35 minutes on the clock. That's what's timing down. And you just go as far as you can in 35 minutes. So, but 35 minutes is like an odd time because 20 minutes, you're kind of mentally used to that from FTP tests and things. So I break it into 5, 4 minutes. But 35 minutes, I was like, this is just quite long. And it was good though. There was another girl at the front and we were like really right together. Like I was a bit better on the hills and she was better on the flats. And yeah, I just like paced off her. Like there was no drafting, but I just got in behind her and paced off her because I knew it was distance. So I was like, well, it doesn't matter if she gets 100 meters on me because that's only going to be 1 point. So I just stayed within distance and that was good. And then you have a 5 minute transition. And then I got on my treadmill and I was like, where are all the runners? Like in the little start pen. I was like, where's everyone gone? Why is no one doing the duathlon? And then I realized later they've changed the rules this year so that, which is great for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, you can go run outside. So everyone had jumped
Oh,
off their bikes and recorded their run outside. So I've actually done that before on the duathlon when I was at our beach house and I just started the run on my phone and linked it to my footpod. So I guess that's what everyone was doing, just running with their phones as hard as they could.
really? So they just wow, that's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah. The only thing is, and I mean, it's you accept this coming in to Zwift with anything that's got running. Is there you think there's ways to game the system biking? My God, there's things to
Oh, I
game
could see
running.
that, right?
Like,
Like,
so I looked at some of the times. I was like, wow. Like, and they could be totally amazing, but I mean, they're averaging like 320s for 20 minutes. I was like, I mean, my friend who went to the Olympics was not even
Doing
like
not even doing
doing
320s.
but
Oh,
you can legitimately do it if literally your house is on a downhill. Just
yeah. I
run
was
out the
wondering
house
about
or
that.
wherever you
Like,
are.
what if it's on a mainly downhill section of road,
Yeah.
or it really changes because it's not the same course, right? So, like, what if
Yeah, and
you're
you
in a
just
very mountainous region?
well, like me, I literally run out our house and it's like this. As I was like, well, I'm not going to do it on ours. My pace will be like 7 minutes as I clamber up
Yeah.
there. So, but it was fun. It was still
Where
really cool to
is
do.
there
So,
any like? I mean, is there anyone kind of like what the heck? Wow, like in the groups, or are they kind of a little more chill in those groups?
I kind of have like, I'm not really on
Avoided.
groups
You
anymore.
just avoid.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like, oh god. Because to be fair, I looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, they could really be that fast. Are they? Maybe not. But who cares? Like, like it's not. Doesn't really matter. Like, I think I go into anything. Yeah, like I said with Zwift running, unless they're on the attack treadmill, like they do with the Super League, and unless I can physically see someone, like you, there could be anything. I mean, I could be holding the sides of my treadmill and just ticking my feet over as fast as I can on a fast moving treadmill belt,
Do
like
you
if I
think
wanted
that?
to.
Okay. Do you think? Okay, this is going on that topic a little bit, but I can relate to what you just said, but not even just with running. Like, I mean, I for probably the first 2 to 3 years of my Zwifting was a forums like hunter. Like, I mean, like where not even out, but like trying to get to a point where this can be verified. We can get to a place where we can really have fair racing. And I was like really, really motivated by that. And like Swift Power, and we were working with the guys at Swift Power, and we were having, and thing after thing after thing. So like working with organizers, trying to get tools into the community within the event systems that would help to clear things out and get awareness higher. And I really tried to play that game of when we're talking about fairness in racing with online racing, I tried to get into that place where we're raising awareness, we're not making any assumptions, and we're not coming out with the pitchforks to shame people, but we are going to name things for what we think that they are and try and get some verification around it, right? And like we had some community tools that ended up maybe being good, maybe not for some things, and then maybe ended up being more shaming tools for other things. And so like those kind of ended up dying down in some ways. There's still like some places where that goes down with duels and stuff, dual recordings and things. But I've kind of like after a few years of that, like when I get into a Zwift race now, there's just a level of like acceptance that I just have, unless there's money on the line and it's like the top
Yeah.
end with world championships or national championships or qualifiers, that I've just kind of gotten to a place where, well, the organizer will take care of it. I hope that they do. And if they
Yeah.
don't, like, and also there's a part of it that's well, I gotta admit, still on live stream, you'll probably go, I don't know about that. That doesn't look real. I'm
That's
sorry. If you are real,
unbelievable.
yeah, if that is real, cool, right on. I don't think that
Yeah.
is. And like, I've had people message me directly about things that are said recently on broadcast, and I'm just really honest with them. I'm like, yeah, I mean, your trainer might be a little off, dude. I'm sorry. Like, and I don't want to like hurt their feelings. You know what I mean? Like about whatever might be
Mm.
going on. But anyways, I think that there just needs to be a certain level of acceptance. And I think that there's two things here. And I know we're going on another topic that wasn't planned, but you'd mentioned it and made me think about this. But, we need to, if you're going to put on races, you got some responsibility, but then at the same time, the people who are putting on races are then looking at the platforms going, we need some stuff. You know what I mean? And then it's like, well, how much can we really get done? So there's, and whether or not that's going to solve the problem. So anyways, acceptance though, I've definitely come into a very, very much a place of acceptance. Unless I'm racing Zwift Grand Prix, then there's
Yeah.
that's a whole nother level.
I think if you're going into it, so with Grand Prix where they've put in measures in place and they have said it's fair racing, and you see something not fair, I think you can justifiably be annoyed. Same with the likes of Indy Velo.
Well,
If you
I
go on
think
Indy
beyond
Velo,
annoyed. I think beyond.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you could
I'm
be putting
annoyed
in
when
protest.
somebody's in my race. Annoyed is. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Um, Same with like Indy Velo's, like straight off the bat has said it's all about fair and racing and stuff. If I saw something there, I would justifiably be like annoyed, because it's like, well, that's the whole point, is I don't want this in there. So, but on Zwift, I mean, the key messaging of Zwift is like participation, fun is fast, go give it a go, go da da da. So if I go into some random race on a Tuesday afternoon, like I just don't get that annoyed if I see someone, shooting off the front at some unbelievable numbers, because I'm like, oh, who cares? Like I picked this random race that has no controls on it. So that's what happens.
I like Sweet's message over here in the in chat. I don't think that's real. That's what Wowit was thinking when Van Aert,
Van der Poel
when Vanderpool attacked. When Vanderpool attacked, like in all the little, we're getting a lot of references to the world. Obviously, our community is really in.
Oh, can I
cycling.
give another one?
Go.
So last night, because I'm like such a huge Lotta Kopecky fan, and also New Zealand is really good on the track. So New Zealand has awesome track cycling riders. I watched the women's Omnium yesterday. Wow. Like I will never race it ever in my life. Like I've been on the track once and no brakes and fixed spinny wheels. Like it's too freaky for me. But there were like crashes everywhere. It was nuts. Like, and then it came down to this final race. Like, and there's points along the side, and they're trying to get these points. And then I don't know how well you know these races, but if you ride and catch back up to the group, so you put in this insane effort to basically lap the bunch on the track, you get 20 points. So people were going from like 20th to like bronze medal. And then someone else would try.
I don't know how this works. I don't understand.
Okay, so they come into the last race and they've got all their points from the previous 3 races. So up on the like right-hand side of the screen, they've got like blah-de-blah's in first with 120 points, blah-blah's in second with 105 points. So you kind of look at that.
Blah, blah. I love these names.
Yeah, well, I don't know all their names yet. I know Wallison, the Kiwi, and Kopecky, the Belgian. And then, okay, so I'll try to explain this right. And I probably get it wrong for all of you track people out there. But they start off in a bunch and they're just going around and around the velodrome. And it's like 70 laps of the velodrome, like 7-0. And so you get 5 points if you win a sprint, which is like every 5th lap or something. So say every 5th lap, if you win that sprint, you get 5 points. But if you break away from that group and you catch them back up, so you like lap them, you get 20 points. And if you time that with a sprint lap, you're already out the front, so you get 25 points. So the freaking thing on the side was all over the show. Like it was like live gold medal like movement. And I was just
amazing.
Like, this is
that
so
sounds like a lot of fun,
engaging.
Actually. Huh.
Oh my gosh. And like you saw like someone like the New Zealander was like,
and the commentary is all over that, like the points and how they're changing and boom, like,
yeah. And the commissary, and so that all the riders have a little red light on their bike and it lights up red if they have been eliminated. And then if you crash, you've only got like 3 or 4 laps to rejoin. So if you crash, you can rejoin. But you've only got 3 laps. So this girl crashed and then she's like, get me my bike. And they didn't get her the bike in time. And so she couldn't get back out there.
God.
She's out. And then what happens too is if someone gets eliminated, but they refuse to accept it. So they just keep riding, which happened in the men's race. And they're like, well, I don't agree with that. Then they neutralize the race. So everyone has to keep riding around and around and around until that protest is dealt with.
Oh, so you can like protest and just be like, I'm not getting whatever. I'm in charge. I
don't think they do it super often, but man, it was wild. And then you have like the Kiwi who had dropped from 3rd to like 6th. So she was out of medals, desperately doing a like break off the front, trying to catch up to the tail to get 20 points so she could go back to being a medal, and made it like 2/3 of the way around and then just ran out of energy and then just like drifted back to the pack. Right. So yeah. I can see why people have been like, we want this style of racing in Zwift. We want like an omnium or an elimination, because like, damn, that was like super fun to watch.
See,
like, I watched the whole thing.
I didn't realize that was the kind of racing. Like the only thing I've done on the track is a little bit of just like to the line points racing like that. But this idea of adding those abilities to use your more threshold type efforts or VO2 efforts quickly to catch something up. And that sounds like a ton of fun, actually. I'm gonna have to check that
Yeah,
out.
it was
I'm gonna have to
cool.
watch some replays.
Yeah, go
here
check it out.
now.
Go check out the women's Omnium, but there was that race, whatever that's called, the points race probably, and then there's also the elimination race, which was
So
also
to relate
super
this to
exciting and
Zwift,
had
though,
like,
I think you're right. I think that this is a huge
yeah, yeah, it was
barrel
so
of
cool.
fun. Like, open this one up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know the points race. I'm trying to think how you would do it on
Well,
Zwift.
we have to have the
and-
points in the game. First and
Exactly.
foremost,
Yeah.
like we'd have to have a
Yeah.
board that tracks the points and it's changing really quickly.
But the thing I thought of, right, Zwift plays. Like, if they can get the software in that, you run an elimination round, your Zwift play Zwift buttons light up red as I'm looking at them, or they vibrate to say you're eliminated.
Mhm.
Like, awesome. Like, that's what they've got on their bikes. And then on the
Then
broadcast
you
screen,
protest, it tries to push you off and you say, no, double check it. Check the API. You're not right. This isn't right. We're neutralizing this race.
yeah. Oh my gosh. So like, I think there's cool ways they could do it, but I mean, the huge thing that made it engaging was that it was live results. Like literally within a couple of seconds of the elimination, it was all rejigged, and you're like,
boom,
"Oh my
boom,
gosh,
boom.
that's what it looks like." Yeah.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Anyway.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. We skipped all of our what have we been up to. It sounds like you did the WTRL. Well, you did the duathlon, so you talked about that and your crash training
What have you
before
been
your
doing?
surgery
Oh,
too,
yeah.
as well.
Yes, they rang me. My surgery is Wednesday next
Okay.
week. So
Gotcha.
I'm like, do as much training as I possibly can before that. So I've got like some fitness, and then lose it for like a few weeks and then come back again.
Gotcha.
There we go.
Right on. All right, what have I been up to? I will show everybody what I've been up to in videos and photos really quickly. Actually, so we've been racing a ton. Gabby here getting ready for her race. She won this past weekend at Wisconsin Off-Road Series as well. I raced as well. Her start, etc., etc. There's all kinds of videos that are happening here. And then my race was pretty good. This is the start of our race in slow-mo. In the Wisconsin Off-Road Series, I took second, the sprint to the line with Cole House. If you guys didn't know who Cole House was, he actually raced for BMC back in the day. He's won a lot of big races here. He's a bigger guy than me. Came to a sprint with him, was unable to break everybody before the end. But it was a really good race. I'm feeling really confident because the Triple Crown is coming up. It's really what I've been training for a lot this year. It was the focus was mainly on Ore to Shore, and like the fitness is going so well that it may be more toward Ore to Shore, Schwamagan, Iceman, and see how it goes. I think that's only been done once or twice in the history of all the Midwest, where somebody was able to win all three in 1 year. So, well, I've never won one of them. So, like, I've been on the podium of Ore to Shore. I've been, in top tens, at Schwamagan and Iceman. Now it's like, well, I just came back to racing in the last 2 years, and it's crazy. I went out, talking about what I've been up to. I went out for one of my final tune-ups before Ore to Shore and did our local Lapham TT. Not team time trial, unless me and Gabby are swapping. That's not happening. But actually, that's a good idea. Do some lead-outs on the course. But anyways, I, in this year alone, have taken almost a minute off of my times from when I was racing the fastest I ever was in 2014 to 2016. A minute is a lot of freaking time on a time trial. I'm like, and my numbers are like 40 watts higher than what I was doing then on the course. Like I averaged like 390 watts. I'm like, for this 12-minute thing, and like I'm fitter than I've ever been, lighter than I've ever been. And I'm like, what is going on? How am I? So I'm really excited about that. Like,
awesome.
And some of the things we're going to talk about in the Coach's Corner actually over the next months are around like a lot of the things I've learned in the last couple of years as well. So, anyways, that's what I've been up to, is getting ready for those and looking forward to them. And it's going to be super exciting this weekend. Ore to Shore, it's up in Ishpeming, Michigan. It's a point-to-point 48-mile race. It's called the Hard Rock because it's all like mining country, way upper, like
cool.
Everywhere you go, there's all these old mines. Like, my kids were just up there, and Kyle brought back a old mining wheel that he found in the water that they like of iron that they dug out of the lake because there's so much mining that had gone up there. You can just find leftover from it everywhere. It's really cool.
Wow,
And it's like
cool.
red rock, so like when you finish, you're all full of red. like you're like it's so. Anyways, they're pretty cool. And the other thing, Schwamagon's a part of the Grand Prix, so like this is Midwest and it's high level. Midwest is super high level. Like, I mean, the reality of taking second with the kind of fitness that I have right now to Cole, and Cole used to be European, won big races on the European Pro World Tour Pro level, and that's just like a state series. So yeah, it's super high. But then the Grand Prix for Schwamagon, not Zwift Grand Prix, that brings in all the big hitters. So that's going to be like the real test to see where things kind of are at coming in September. So that's a big, long, whatever I'm up to, but that gives everybody an idea of like where Nathan's training head is at and what I'm after right now. So yeah.
Sorry, there was just a bit of world's chat going on, but I think this is why you wanted to start Coach's Corner, though, right? Like you said, is because you've had these like amazing gains, and it seems like from our discussions on the pod in the last year, you've focused a bit more on like structure, some erg mode, things like things
okay.
like
So
that.
I had structure before, and definitely. So I think also everybody's up their game in things that were figured out maybe 10 or 15 years ago. You know how there's like trickle down. There's a trickle down. And so always from university study level all the way to the level that is the end user, the general population. And so a lot of the studies that you were referencing in the early 2000s, you were looking at either something that was super recent, like in like late 90s, early 2000s, or even further back than that. There wasn't a whole lot of reference, and everybody's read the Friel Charioting Bible, the Andy Kogan Power. Like there's all of these like books that were from back then. But I do think that we've had a whole nother generation now of new research that's come out about how to do things. And I think everybody's gaining the benefits from that by upping their game in education about how the body works to get the most out of it.
Nice, I agree. So shall we intro this Coach's Corner then, the new segment?
Yeah, sure, no problem. And do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Okay.
Yeah, just about. So
Okay.
what we
Shall I
want to
go
do?
first?
Yeah,
Then
you go first.
Yeah.
So what we want to do up front, everybody, is since we are introducing a Coach's Corner, why should you guys listen to us? Like you guys are just like Zwifters, I thought. Like what the heck? But both of us are coaches. People actually pay us to do this, like, and talk to them about what they should be doing with their bodies in exercise in order to get results. So we're both going to just do little intros on like our background on that.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, and I think we've had this because we keep naturally gravitating to talking about coach side of things when we get into Zwift stuff. So having a little segment on its own kind of makes sense. So yeah, I've been coaching for about 15 to 17 years, mostly in triathlon. So Ironman, 70.3 long distance stuff, some Olympic stuff, and coach runners. I was a track, I guess, college runner, you'd call it here. And degree in sports psychology, amongst a few other things, but that was the one pertinent to coaching. So I have a real interest in the psychology side of like race preparation. If you think about what I would say my coaching style is, though, and it'll come into probably our chat today, is I'm very sort of, I don't want to say old school, but I am all about listening to your body. So like a lot of things that come up. One example would be like if someone says to me they want to have someone coach them to say their menstrual cycle. The first thing that goes in my head is like, if you are really, really well attuned to your body, you will train to that anyway, because you will know how your body's feeling. So I guess I'm not a huge data geek. I obviously train through Training Peak, so I have all the data and I look at that. But the first and foremost thing for me is communication with the athlete and getting them to be able to hear and listen to their body. So that's me, my coaching.
Yeah, and I think that on that front, just like to say, and I'll go into my background then, but to encourage that and like totally back that up 100% is that, and one thing we'll talk about today is when you're talking about coaching someone, you're talking about finding body states to get the best results out of them, right? Like trying to create states in the body that gets the absolute best out of them. And so like, you're just like what you just said is, hey, we need to pay attention to how your body's feeling and make sure that the feelings that you're getting out of that are matching with what we're trying to aim at here. And a lot of times I think that there's a lot of really great things. I shouldn't even say really great things. Human flourishing is absolutely amazing now in the modern age, but we've got some hangups about what reason and rationalization and science has done to make us think in certain ways that almost like get rid of like feeling altogether. Like, and I think that that's spilled over because I used to think, what's the best program? Just give me the absolute like written out program. If I do A, B, C, D, boom, it will get me this result. You know what I mean? And like A, B, C, D was like, in my head, it was some hard numbers I had to produce. And I didn't want to, or I didn't know, or I thought that like that rigid line of just like meeting that mark was like a pass fail rather than kind of like this creative understanding over and over again of like trying to find that consistent growth through the responses and feelings I'm getting through the training I was doing. So definitely something that's I had to learn over a long period of time and probably getting sick way more times than I ever actually needed to because I'm pushing my body so incredibly far off of just hard numbers. So my background though is I've been racing for 20 years, went pro within 3 years of starting racing, started a little bit late actually in my life as far as cycling goes. I was varsity hockey player, Goju karate at a really, really high, intense level with someone in my life who was like one of the top level of the entirety of martial arts within karate, and then played a really, really high level of hockey. And then just kind of took that training into the rest of my life. But I've been biking and racing BMX when I was really young. And then I had like a rebellion stage from the ages of like 12 through like 17 that just took me out at 16-ish. And then I started playing hockey again around there. That just took me out of all sports altogether. And I was just messed up. But like, so when I came back and sport became like kind of a thing that changed my life in some ways too, because there was discipline and something to aim towards and goals that were outside of that other life and culture I was living. And then that became a really strong identifier for me. So like that became a lifestyle and not just a thing I did or a hobby. It was like central to my life because of that. And so like everything then also I like with me, I like to like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all out. I'm going to try and be the best and really competitive, whatever. And so right off the bat, I started wanting to learn as much as I possibly could in whatever I was going after. If it was hockey, if it was martial arts, now it was cycling. And so cycling though really was like 21, 22. So like everybody told me though, like, you're too old, man. Like you're too old to really, no, seriously, like because the junior programs, they all start so young. And like, if you're in your early 20s just getting going, that's kind of the messaging that always came across was like, you're not a part of, you haven't been doing this long enough. You don't have enough time now to actually get to be pro. But
it's such a like difference with triathlon. I went professional when I was 28, 29. It's like, it's so different.
Yeah, I wonder what's up with that. No, there is something there though. There is something there within cycling culture and the ideas within cycling culture versus I think some of the other sports.
I think it's just the distance. If you were going for like the Olympic distance in triathlon, yeah, it's too late. 28 is way too late.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
It was way too late. It's like marathon running versus track running. Like if you wanted to be a pro marathoner and you were 25, you could still legitimately do it because you could do it till you're 40. But yeah, not if you're like, I want to do the 1500 meters. Be like, probably a bit late.
Now, I'm not sure if I didn't have the background in hockey as well as, you know, the martial arts as well as BMX when I was young. And I literally would just ride my BMX bike, like literally from town to town, from mom's house to dad's house. I'd be on my BMX bike. Like it was, and that was like a 15-mile thing. So anyways, yeah, long story. Obviously, I always tend up in these big long narratives. But I then went to school, and part of my schooling was discovery. And so in my associate's degree, I got a big focus on exercise phys. So that's where I learned all the stuff I needed to about the body, because I wasn't sure if I was going to end up in education or somewhere else. And so I wanted a backup. And so I took a bunch of classes in exercise phys to just make sure I had that grounding if I did want to get into the exercise sciences more. And then from there, I got all those basics in place within exercise phys. And then I just started reading all the literature, because I was a cyclist, I was racing professionally, and I needed more information to self-coach, because I wasn't paying somebody. I didn't have enough money. I was a pro athlete. I had 5 kids, going to school. There wasn't a whole lot of money going around. You know what I mean? So it was
now,
like,
was your sickness because you were training too much, or because you had 5 kids? Because
I think,
oh man,
I think it's a little bit of
Kids.
both. There was some lack of sleep going on, but I also think though that, and we'll go into the topic then for today. But and that'll really be good for the topic today too, when it comes to finding your zones and how to use your zones. But then the last thing I would say is, across my coaching, then it all came out of my professional racing career, alongside of those educational pieces that I have and then from there, I had a big focus on vision cycling with youth. So I worked with youth a lot and had to figure out like what their needs were. Right. And then I've also worked with a lot of athletes who were in that 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus range, that were like, whoa, who's this up and comer? I want to be, I want to get some similar results. He's doing it maybe a little bit different way than most of the time. It seems like he knows what's up. And so I've had a lot of people in those age ranges contact me and look for results. And we've had some pretty good ones. I mean, I've had a guy, standing on the national podium in Iceland in his 40 pluses with the elites, and taking guys from bottom of sea level to the top of B's, and almost winning national championships, like virtually. So definitely a focus on all the age ranges too, and what their needs are across them. So there's my background in coaching. So Coach's Corner. I'm excited about this. Why are we doing this? Yeah. We want to make sure that everybody has something they can come and grab out of the podcast every single week as well, because I think that everyone's always looking for a little bit more of an edge too.
Yes, and especially as we're a Zwift podcast and we're coming into Zwift race season, people maybe wanted to tune in for a few little hot tips and tricks to get their own sort of races humming along the way they want them to. And maybe I've learned from a lot of mistakes, so maybe to not make the same mistakes.
And actually, I think that's a really good point, is the things we're going to talk about here are partially beliefs that we've had that were wrong and then turned into a different belief, right? Like, I think all of our coaching background a lot of times is like, whoa, I made a mistake. Well, that's science. Like, you have a hypothesis, you test it, it doesn't go right, but it gets a little bit closer to what you were trying to get at in the first place, right?
And I know that you would probably do this too, but like, I will always experiment on myself before I put it into an athlete's program. So
your partner?
Yeah, exactly. So if I see something that like, and I guess this is pertinent today, so we want to talk about zone training. I think this is pertinent to this discussion for me. I can give a bit of a background here, is that I've experimented a lot of the zone. There's a lot of different research out there. You've got Polarized, and there's a great podcast called the Science and Sport podcast, and they've done a whole like hour-and-a-half discussion on zone training, and it's like super interesting. So I'd urge you to go listen. But I've trialed a lot of things of these different researchers to see how it works on me, and then if I can implement it with athletes, because I'll give one example. Like for me, the probably ideal, and I'm looking at it'd probably be across the board, to be fair, is you do a lot of stuff in zone 2. So that's like pretty easy stuff, like, but not super easy. It's not like warm-up pace. It's like, you can hold a conversation, but you're still like at the end of it being like, I'm glad that's done. Like that was still pushing a little. And then like a few sort of, it's the 80-20, and then 20% that real hard stuff, really like sharpening up. So that's like the typical like theoretical polarized training. But what happens, right, is when you have people who are really time crunched, so say like myself at the moment with 3 really young kids and trying to work at the same time, and I had an athlete come who is a doctor who just works crazy hours, shift work and stuff, you can't often get in the long easy. Like I literally can't go out at the moment and ride for 4 to 5 hours like I used to before kids. So polarized actually kind of doesn't work for me because I don't have the huge 80% side of the easy stuff. So what I experimented on myself with trying to qualify for the 70.3 world champs, and with this doctor, it worked on me. And so then I implemented it with her and it worked with her. But there's always like caveats and side effects of doing this. So I went all zone 3-4. So I did 0 easy. Every time I did a run or a bike or a swim, it was only an hour to an hour and a half, and it was hard. So it was that kind of like, like not even like sweet spot. Like it was just, 5-minute efforts at threshold, really hard kind of stuff. So every session was hard.
You were doing a ton of SST, a ton of up, under, just, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And there was no easy stuff because I didn't have the time for it. So I was only training like 7 hours a week. Now I did a 70.3 and like a 4:42, and I qualified for worlds, like second in my age group. But there's 2 caveats, is I had to have a history of base work. So if you're brand new to the sport, this doesn't work because you'll just break, because there's no history I've got years and years and years and years of base work behind me. The other one is the race was extremely muscularly painful. So the body was not used to the long distance, but it was used to the pain. So it hurt, like it was really like sore, like crampy, like could not walk for a few days afterwards. Like the body was not ready for it, but it could deal with the pain. So I could still do the same time, but it was a lot more of a different sort of system that was getting used.
Before I chime in on that, the zones and discerning the zones, to piggyback on that, the difference there is being in control of your race and being out of control of your race. I think those two, right? Like there's a breadth or a stature you have when you show up with enough base that says I'm in control and I have tools to work with. Whereas you're on a thin line that entire time of breaking, and you have to come in with I am over effort the whole time, but I can do it. That's the difference. But you got it done. You still got it done.
Yeah, and the doctor I coached also got it done off 8 hours a week and qualified for the world champs. So you can get it done, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here with sort of zone training is that there's ideal, and this is where theory comes in, and you can look and be like, that's ideal. And I look at your Instagram stories and I'm like, man, they're going out for those long rides. Like, that's awesome. But this is why, when I go for a gravel ride, I have to insert those QOMs and stuff, because I only have 2 hours usually to go ride around. Now, a zone 2-hour ride for me is kind of offering nothing. It's not really doing much.
It's a maintenance for you at your level too. It's a maintenance ride, or it might train it if you do it day after day after day after day, but you're not doing day after day after day after day after day of that, right?
Then I may not get on the bike for 3 days, right? So it's kind of, that's sort of, and this is what I mean by experiment on yourself, or have a coach who does experiment on themselves, and they can say to you, here's the risks of doing that. Here's the benefit. This is why. But I just get a little bit frustrated, I guess, when I see zone training. It's this is the perfect way to do it. I'm cool. I don't live in a vacuum. I can't be oh, see your kids. I have to do a 5-hour ride today because that's my perfect zone.
I think you can quantify this a little bit though, that at certain thresholds of hours, you will get something. You will no longer get very much out of zone 2 training. Your zone 2 training at 7 to 10 hours is more like your recovery days. It's more like you, right? It's more like this is just going to be something that is for recovery because you've smashed yourself as much as you could. And if you've only got this amount, I mean, it's 7 hours even, you're right. You should be using those hours for something else, because that's what's going, if it's about racing, then that's what's going. You have to have race fitness for racing, and that zone 2 isn't really going to do a whole lot. Now, if you can eke out that 10 to 15 area, you start getting into that area, then you can start incorporating something for some more zone 2 base training. Now, that's also timing within the year too, right? So maybe we could talk, and maybe that we're getting into so many topics now. So maybe like a periodization topic, we can take that for another time to like talk about where that all can happen. So what I really want to, the main thing I want to pull out of zone 2, or not zone 2, the idea of defining and discerning your zones as the topic specifically here is, I think a lot of times when I say, what are your zones? People think of it's these numbers, especially in the Zwift world. And I want to relate this a lot to Zwifters. And when I talk to them about their zones, immediately they start telling me certain numbers, right?
Yeah.
They immediately tell me, well, my zone 2 is 200 and my FTP is 3 this, or and I'm like, that's not your zones. Like those are numbers that you relate to your zones. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, but my heart rate is da 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 da. And I'll be like, that's not your zones either. And then they'll be like, well, my RP, and I'm like, and that's not your zones either. Like those are all, those are all methods of finding a body state. And the people who are like, give me something hard are going to be so mad at me about this. But guess what? Like your zone throughout, your zone 2 or your zone 3 or your zone 4 throughout in a ride, it's going to change. The only thing that is a hard number on that is how your body is currently processing energy. That is what your zones are. It is a body state for how it is processing energy in the muscles in order to produce the power you're currently producing. And so if it takes my body to really hammer this definition home, in zone 1, to produce that power, there's a certain energy pathway within my slow twitch muscles that's being used in order to produce that ATP, to produce the thing that allows my muscles to contract. And then when I hit zone 2, it changes a little bit. It goes from just mainly using fat to using fat and sugar. And then when I hit zone 3, it goes to like, whoa, we're starting to get into a lot of sugar here. We're using a little bit of fat, but it's mainly going, and then we get into zone 4, and it's like, we're just doing sugar here, buddy. Whoa, there's a lot of threshold coming through here. Oh my gosh, can we hold on to this and how long? And that's like that threshold. And we can stop here at threshold for a little bit, because this is the one everybody talks about a whole lot. And everyone thinks it's my 20 or it's my 1 hour or whatever it is. You know what it actually is when it comes to threshold? It's like, when I go a little bit harder, I have to stop. Like that's what threshold actually means. You want to say something about this?
Well, also I think, so like how I describe zones to my athletes is purely on feel. So when I go zone 2, so I go with a 5 zone system. I don't know.
Okay.
So there's all different. People have 7 zones or whatever. I just go with 5. So zone 2, I'm like, look, you can hold a conversation. You should be able to hold a conversation. And when you get off your bike, you should feel, if I said to you, go ride another hour, you'd be like, okay, like that's fine.
Can I jump in on this really quickly? Just to use a word here real quick. Cell respiration or respiration is a really good way to think about this on the bike. Because I know a lot of people are going to get kind of mad. Like, and I understand, not mad, but a little bit like anxious. Like, well, I don't know. Respiration is what's happening in your body, and what's actually changing is how you're respirating, how you're using oxygen is changing. So that's why it's such a good barometer, such a good measurement to know. So like when I first get on the bike and I'm going for a zone 2, my zone 2 might start in 230 because my body's like warming up and it's trying to figure out how to respirate. I'm in the 280s by the end, actually, sometimes of a good zone 2 day, and I'm well fueled. I'm making sure the sugar's in. It's upped by, and that's still zone 2. If I'm able to talk and hold a conversation, it is still zone 2, actually. And it changed from 230. But guess what? It wouldn't have been, if I would have gone to 280 right away, I would have started training.
What numbers are you talking about there?
What's that?
The breathing rate is what's 230 and 280?
Oh, 230 watts and 280 watts. If I were using just watts,
okay.
if I was using just power, sorry about that. Sorry, everybody. So if I were using just watts, at the beginning, if I would have tried to go to my hard, I can do 280 and my pride got in the way, guess what would have happened? I would have started using sugar and I would have ruined the entire workout, because you can't get out of using that sugar zone very easily. And I wouldn't have been training my zone 2 fat utilization, which is so extremely important for what you're actually trying to accomplish. Go ahead. So I know I interrupted you, but I just wanted to help people with that respiration thing.
I think we have to keep interrupting because that's the point, right? Because
totally,
we're bringing in different things. So like, that's purely what I tell my athletes. It's all like, and then zone 3, look, you should be starting to have that being comfortable, being uncomfortable feeling. Like if you want to talk to someone, it's going to be puffy. Like you're going to get out a few words, and if you're looking at a rep, you're going to be almost like clock watching a bit, like when is this going to finish? Like, so those are like the feelings that should invoke in that power zone or pace zone if it's running. And then like the 4 and 5. I mean, 5 is like you're all out sprinting, so it's kind of that's pretty self-explanatory.
So zone 3, you want to say that again? They might have mixed it up just a little bit with 2 a second there. So the zone 3 and before you hit 4 is when you can't really hold the conversation, but you kind of can. Like it's like right on the edge there.
Yeah, like, and for me, it's like if someone was talking to me, I'd be getting frustrated. Like,
totally.
I'd sort of be saying like, can you just wait on until
a couple words can get out. Like,
okay, can you give me a sec? Or like, so so that's the kind of like, and you're wanting it to kind of finish. You're sort of like
double wheeling on the front, and both of you are too proud, and someone's trying to talk to engage it. That's the like, and then 4 is when like you've been there for a minute or two, and neither of you are talking anymore.
Like nothing. You're just angry. So a lot of that I don't feel. Now this is where it becomes a little bit of a risk with erg mode training. So I will admit this is a bit of a risk, because if you don't know how your body feels, and this is why I say to my athlete, I'm like, you need to tell me after these workouts that are on erg mode, especially not so much in base phase, because a lot of it's like low cadence, grindy. It's more about like muscular development and that sort of thing. But when it gets into build phase, like I've got with a few of my athletes with the duathlon season, is if you are doing what is a zone 3 or 4 effort and it's too easy, like you're chatting away. The biggest risk for me is when I see their comment on Training Peaks afterwards that said, that felt really good. I'm like, okay,
what is that?
What does that mean? Because it should be saying that felt hard or like that was difficult. And so I always, if I see that message, I'll be like, how did you feel in that effort? Because just because that's a number that's sitting there in Zwift as your power target, if it's feeling easy, that's not right. Like you need to know that feeling. And that's also why you should always, always utilize the bias in Zwift in your erg mode. So like if you are feeling and you know it like, this is a bit easy, I'm going to lift this by 5% today. Oh, that's the feeling that's invoked, and that's right. That's okay. Obviously that's lifted a little. And also like it's all based off an FTP number that you did at some point in time. You could have had 2 hours of sleep. So maybe it's not all the zones are different, or you've had freaking amazing sleep and you've eaten well that morning and everything's perfect. And maybe it's a little bit higher today. So the zones, people are, and I'm seeing it in the chat too, like people they get stuck on what these numbers are and they just sit there and you're not going to see improvement, right?
Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of those numbers as like, here's where I'm at today. Here's where I'm at for this week. Here's where I'm at for this month. In that season, I was producing this at my best, right? And it's a general idea of how things are going. But like, if I'm trying to get to a very specific understanding of like an invisible thing to me, right? Like you're trying to find something that's invisible to you, right? That's really what these tools are for. Is you're not going to, and that's why they're starting like at the top level. And I don't know how many of you want to go into a lab and pay a doctor to sit there and take lactate levels out of your blood to figure out what's going on in there. Like, and even the professionals don't do that. And they still get told, look, this is what you're producing today based on what you ate today, what you this is a roundabout number to tell you this is your wattage, this is your heart rate at this. Some days, my heart rate's in the 130s, and my zone 2, as far as respiration goes, is like, no, sorry, this is it. This is all we're getting today is 130s. But sometimes I'm at the 150 marker, and I'm like, I can talk just fine. Everything's great here. So I have a 20 beat range for zone 2. Like, so just to
Yeah.
help everybody there as far as like being able to discern. Now, Sweet the Cyclist is coming in. A surprising number of people like to do that, Nathan. So I thought he was coming in with a criticism of not a criticism, but I know he knows that when I do my SST workouts, he watches those on Zwift. And I do want to put a caveat here that sometimes you're just trying to push the numbers. Like sometimes but that is usually not your zone 2 training. That's usually everything above zone 2 training that you're trying to push those numbers to try and experience as much lactate clearance as you possibly can.
Yeah, there's a difference here in that zone 3-4 training that if you so that's what I mean when I see an athlete that said that felt great. It's like, well, it shouldn't really feel great. And that's where it's like, you need to have that conversation with yourself, that hard conversation when you're in that hard session, that it should be feeling hard. And are you reducing the bias because, like you're at that time of the cycle and it's terrible day today, or you've had bad sleep or whatever, or are you reducing it because you just are not liking the hard feeling? Mm-hmm. So that's like that conversation you've got to have with yourself that, yes, it's all about listening to your body. And part of listening to your body is knowing that like, this is supposed to feel hard today. I've looked at the session. Yes, those are a little bit of a stretch target and I may finish this and it could be hard. Or I might get to the 5th rep and not last the whole thing. That's okay too. I think one thing that I always talk to my athletes about is like some sessions, it's okay to fail on them. Like it's got to be okay because you actually don't know where your limit is on some of these harder things unless you fail. And I think people as well and this is where the freaking ticks and the Zwift workouts are not great for people's mentality because it's the same as training peaks
pass-fail idea.
It's the same as training peaks having green, orange, and red. So green if you do the session, exactly. Orange if you were a bit less or a bit more, and red as you didn't do it at all. I've said to athletes, like, I want to see green, orange, and red in your program. If I see all green, that's showing me you're probably not listening to your body because like no one can do a perfect training. Like no.
Can I give an example? Can I give an example real quick? Like this past Tuesday, we went out and we did TTs and then afterwards we did some anaerobic work. And I have a hill climb locally that I use all the time. It takes me somewhere between 3 to 3.5 minutes on a mountain bike. Okay. Absolutely perfect VO2 full max, like type of efforts that I need. And the first one, I was feeling good. And I said, I am going to abandon myself to this effort. I'm going to see how this effort goes to the top. And I know number 2 is not going to go that well, right? I know, but I want to see how my repeat will go, right? I didn't go full sprint like 600 watts way outside, but I was like, I'm going to push the edge. My first one, I think, was like 450 or something like that. That's like, I'm like, either I'm on like the best day of my life or I can't repeat this. I hope I can repeat it. Let's see how it goes. Come back to the bottom, get my little halftime to almost full-time rest, turn around. The next one's 390, 400. And like, that's pushing my time, TTE, time to exhaustion. Like I'm supposed to be getting to a complete exhaustion because the body responds when you hit exhaustion. It goes, oh, I'm at the limit and I need more than this in a future state, right? And so like I accepted 390, 400 on that one. And then I kind of evened out for the rest of them. Like because I accepted that and it was within the range, then I was like, cool, now I'm going to go right around 400, 410. That's what I know I can produce. And because I also accepted 400, 410, I actually could push up maybe to 420. And the last one, 430s. And I'm really excited about that. And it was all within this great range that got the anaerobic work done. And when I get into those acceptance modes and see it as a long game of repeated efforts week after week of trying to hit these gains because we so want to just see them now and like, how am I doing now? Instead, now I've seen a continual rise of 10, 15, 20 watts over a month or two on that specific section because I've had that acceptance.
And I think like, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, but what do I do? Like, I have no idea what my body feels like at these different zones. I've lost all feeling because I'm literally just staring at the screen and making sure I'm in a certain power number. And you can see where that goes wrong for someone in an erg workout because they're doing like a sweet spot and their cadence on the first effort is 90 and then on the last effort it's 50. They're like that's your feeling is gone. Then you're literally just riding to erg mode. What I would do and what I've suggested to athletes is look at the workout, write it down. Like, okay, that's supposed to be not the power number, just like in a certain zone. And then go on to Zwift, pick a flat route like Tempest Fugit or something, hide the HUD. So just have yourself, nothing else. Look at your workout and just ride and do the workout as what it's supposed to be without looking at numbers. After the session, get off, look at what your numbers are, compare it to what your zones are and be like, right, okay, I got that a bit right, I got that a bit wrong, and just like see what it looks like and write down how you felt, things like that, and then erg mode is way more successful for you because you know what it needs to be.
Totally. And that using when it comes to Zwift, using the percentage changer, you will get so many more workouts done at the level that you're supposed to. That's so incredibly important. There's one more point that I definitely want to bring in here on what zone 2 training is for, and then we'll move on, I think. But because people, I think, at least for me, so a mistake I made early on when I got a power meter was I thought of my power zones as what their purpose was. What can I do for this amount of time? And trying to get that number as high as it possibly could get for each one of those amounts of time. But that ended up meaning that I ended up just doing a lactate focused workout for the second half of a lot of those time to exhaustion workouts. I ended up doing time to exhaustion workouts across all of my peak power. I was just aiming at peak powers all the time, right? I'm going to go out for a 5-hour ride. I'm aiming for peak power. I'm going out for a 3-hour ride. I'm aiming for peak power. That's how I thought about base. That's how I thought about my endurance zones. But what I ended up losing then is the ways in which you utilize certain energy systems in that zone 2 training. And so for those who are wondering why, because I think that there's even a frustration, like for those who really like to work hard, is that they might understand. And this helps me a lot. If I know the why, oh my gosh, like, does it help me in my training? It helps me so much because I know what's happening. I gain confidence actually. So if you get the why down during, and there's just so much more willingness. And I feel like, it's like solving a problem actively while I'm pedaling, actually, like having that there. And so what you're trying to do when you're doing that zone 2 training is utilizing fat as much as you possibly can. This does not mean do not eat sugar, because, and I'm going to say this really, really forcefully, because zone 1 is where it's just fat. Zone 2 is actually where you've started using both a lot, actually, and that you're using glucose a whole bunch alongside of the fat at almost equal levels. And so the idea here is that with that glucose, then you're able to utilize more fat. And so, like, if you deplete the sugar, you're actually going to end up slowing down the process, and you're going to have to lower the heart rate, lower the power, and you're going to end up, your body's going to end up trying to force you to zone 1 as you run out of sugar. So
or you're going to have an extremely long recovery from a session that should not have a long recovery.
Both of those can be true. So both of those are absolutely true. After my zone 2 rides, the next day I feel like $1,000,000 actually, if I'm fueled really, really well. Like, I've been doing all of this really focused zone 2 rides, and I've been able to put in massive hours because I'm so well fueled, because I'm eating every 15 minutes. I'm putting in at least one gel. Like, actually, everybody, I am training my body to consume 90 grams of sugar to 120 grams of sugar per hour throughout that zone 2 on the longer ones. If it's an hour, hour and a half, I'm not doing that. Sometimes I don't eat on those depending on the day, whatever. But like on those 2-hour ones, you got to make sure that you're putting that in. And I think having that understanding of what the cells are doing, that they're using both, and that having the sugar there makes it so that the fat utilization is higher, actually, and that if you stay in that zone 2 and don't go into 3 and don't go into 4, you're going to make these mitochondria in your body like uber, like super fat utilization, and they're going to be able, and that zone 2 is going to come up, 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 up. I think I've seen almost a 50-watt increase in my zone 2 in the last year to 2 years simply by making sure, and it's taken time to convince my brain. My pride is so in the way, so in the way about watching. Oh, am I only, even last night I was out on a zone 2 where I was like mad at my power numbers. Oh, I'm only producing 230 today. Like, well, Nathan, the day before you did a crazy interval workout and you need a little rest. Like, what the heck?
Well, this is the thing too, is that a lot of things people get wrong, and this is that polarized discussion, is that if you go out and you hit those zone 2 numbers really hard, like go above them, because your pride's in the way and you're like, I don't want to ride this easy. The best benefit I'm going to get is to do this really hard and finish the session and be smashed. Well, the problem is you're smashed, and then your coach, if you have a coach, is probably set for you based on that weekly sort of structure, a like hard session, because they've assumed you've done your zone 2, so you've got all those benefits, you're feeling good, and you're going to hit a hard session really hard. You can't do that. You come into the hard session smashed. So what happens is you don't hit those numbers. So essentially all training becomes zone 3, and very quickly you'll plateau. So
and get sick. And get sick.
Yeah.
And get sick.
Overtrained, sick, plateau. Yeah.
Yep, big time. So hugely important, everybody, that like you get that zone 2 right, because those are made to be more recovery rides and not drain you whatsoever. I love that Sweet the second. Wait, so I shouldn't bonk halfway through every zone 2 ride? Like, I can relate though. I can relate. Like, and but that's not to say that there isn't a space for it. If you got a good coach, they're gonna give you a space for those zone 3. Like we did that Madison ride, and that was all about sweet spot. That was all about just have that really high, glycolytic.
This is where it comes to experimentation too. So I mean, a lot of when I was doing Ironman, a lot of my 6-hour rides were that sort of easy, like lower end of zone 2, right? And I would go out and be like, I'm just going to eat fats today and no carbs. So I'm going to have water, so no carb in the drink. I'm going to have like hard-boiled eggs or like something that's very like fat protein. And I need to see where that limit is, where I start to edge off into carb, because I knew for those 6-hour rides, I wanted to keep it super easy zone 2. And so using the nutrition was a way for me to see at what point did I switch. It was usually around the 4-hour mark that I was getting the kind of bonking, lightheaded feel, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, so that's where I'm kind of switching over here. And I need to make sure that I have a gel at about this time, or that happened because I hit that long climb, and obviously instead of doing it easier, I hit the long climb and did it harder, and that pushed me over the edge a bit and I got out of the zone. So again, that came down to pure feeling. That wasn't on power numbers. I was using like nutrition as a way to see where the break point was there.
Yeah, totally. Now, well, I think this is a big topic. We can come back into this one in at a future time as well to talk more about threshold. I really wanted to focus in on the zone 2 a little bit, and we'll talk maybe more about the utilization of threshold and how to use it well, what kind of things, how to define it even, because I mean, I actually have a clip from Inigo Samalan here really quickly here, just that, I'm not going to play it, but he says threshold for what? It was from the GCN zone 2 training he recently did. And he went through all of his zones and he said, now in this one with 4, there's a big misunderstanding here. It's not 20. It's not an hour. It's like, I go harder and I'm going to have to stop soon. Like that's what threshold is. That's really what it's about. And that you're in that threshold range of burning a certain amount of sugar and producing a certain amount of lactate, that if I go that 10 watts harder, I'm going to have to stop. That's what threshold workout really is about. It could be for 5 minutes. It could, a little bit further out, but it could be like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, a marathon. There's a threshold for each one of those. And those are essentially time to exhaustions within a zone that's producing so much lactate that you're using that as one of your main energy sources to produce ATP. Yeah. So anyways, okay. Well, there's the Coach's Corner. I hope everybody liked it. Let us know. I really
actually
want to
topics.
know.
Yeah.
like, well, I want to know if you enjoyed it first and foremost. Like, do you guys like this? Do you want more of this? And if you head on over to our socials, you go into the my personal Discord. We do take topics there as well. Message either of us. Let us know. Shoot it out there in the socials as well. We'd like to see whatever, and we'll even put some posts out on the ZCL socials as well as our socials, kind of saying, hey, what would you like to see for some topics? And we'll bring them in, and then maybe we'll even get some guests as well around specifically Coach's Corner.
I think so, because I think we're in a really good spot right now for this to be open, because we're going to be able to provide examples of two extremes. Your mid-race season, feeling amazing, doing some high-end training. So if people have questions around that, perfect. Nathan can sort of provide some real-life examples. I'm about to go in for a surgery, and we'll be on like a 6-week, road back to like fitness. So if people are like, how do you do that? Like, how much should you do? Then I can like kind of help with that journey as well, as I'm sort of going from 0 to Grand Prix in, like 3 to 4 months. So yeah, we've got kind of different perspectives here from either end of the spectrum.
100% right on. So, all right, next up, let's go to a couple topics here real quickly. The Zwift Racing League Group Recon Ride, Recon Rides has been announced actually, which I think is a really cool idea. Now, at first I was like, oh, like I'll be honest, my gut reaction right off the bat was kind of like, cool, like there's a lot of Recon rides out there. But then I looked at what they're doing. And the teams, all the teams out there are doing these. And they're actually, you can head on over. I'll show this real quickly here on screen. If you're just listening, you can head on over to zwift.com/events/tag/ZRL Recon. I think that WTRL probably shared this up somewhere as well. But these are all teams that are a part of the Zwift Racing League that have said, hey, we'll run a Recon ride. And as these get set up, you get to ride with these teams that are taking part and get to know them. And that's also a great recruiting mechanism, I would think, to get a feel for who they are and what their culture is.
So, yeah, the first thing I thought when I saw this was like, why is Zwift taking something off the community? Like, the community's already got so many amazing Recon rides. But then, yeah, like you said, I was like, oh, this is actually awesome, because instead of someone being like, when is a Recon ride? Like, I don't know. I'm not on the Facebook page of Team Velo, so I don't know when they do their one. Is now it's all in one place, and it's been run by the teams. And like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, there's heaps of times that work for me as well. Looks like there's just a ton of times, and they've got like in brackets which team it is. So you can kind of look and be like, oh, I'm interested to know about that team. I might do that one. And they'll have a leader. So
that's a great point too, I think, Anna, is that there's been a difficulty in discovery. And this is a great mechanism for discovering teams where like people are like, well, how do I find a team? Recon rides are a great way to find a team. You'll go and actually hang out with these people in their ride, and they'll chat with them, and you get their vibe 100%. This is what it's like to ride with these people.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you haven't got a team and so you're not in, say, round one, you can also ride the courses of round one and be like, oh, this is what it's about. And likely the Recon rides, which seeing these teams, they'll know what they're doing, is they'll be saying to people like, hey, you could use these tactics on this bit of the course, and you can use this. And because it's led by like really good teams here, they're also just going to be enjoyable, because there's like, I can see some of them have like a couple of categories. So they're probably like, oh, look, we want a C group and we want a B group. And that means that everyone's happy with the pace. And so people know what they're doing. So it's good.
100%. So, all right, cool. Zwift Racing League coming quick. Recon rides. Already some have been scheduled. It looks like the first one, though. So it's a little ways out, just so you know. The first one, it looks like that I see so far, which I have a feeling there's going to be more that are going to be coming up quickly here, is going to be August 29th. But I have a feeling we'll see a couple before that as well. But we'll see how quickly that ends up happening. One other thing I wanted to highlight that I thought was pretty cool. I always like to see what's happened over on Zwift Insider before we go live on the podcast. And there's this cool downloadable printable list of Zwift routes. And Eric has actually done a listing of them based on how difficult they are. 1 bidon, 2 bidons, 3 bidons, 4, and 5+. There's 5 routes that are 5+ on the bidons, and you can download this. There's also, he lists also the event only badges. So kind of a cool little downloadable. I think I always love that Eric is so innovative for creating resources for the community. Seriously, that's a cool idea.
Well, the best thing about that list is printed off, and it's got as we were just saying, the tick boxes on the workouts isn't the best thing, but it's got a little tick box so you can visually see like tick, 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 tick. Have I done this route? Have I done this route? If you want to knock off all the routes.
Yeah, and it even lists
It's also
the how long the meters climbed, as well as how much XP. Yeah, lead in, all of that.
So this is actually awesome for an event organizer like myself, is trying to go in and figure out what courses to do for people. This is amazing because then you can just quickly refer to it. So yeah, good job, Eric, again, by producing something that's super useful.
Extremely useful. Nice job. I love that idea with event organizers. That's really helpful. Yeah, definitely. So and then last up, well, maybe we leave this one because we just went on forever. Like steering and non-steering in races, is it fair?
So I'm running an event at the moment, and I hadn't realized this, that steering is just like by default enabled, like at the moment. Now the issue is like we're in New Zealand, so no one has access to the new Zwift plays. So there's very few people steering, but there are some people steering. And I had someone email me sort of being like, is this fair that some people have steering and some don't? Because this person rode like they just did big loop, so up Epic Climb and down and round to Watopia, the board whatever main area. Totally forgotten the name. But he said, is it fair because they've ridden like a kilometer less? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like my answer to him was, look, yes, he's ridden less, but there is inherent disadvantage with them too when you're using steering and no one else is that you often will fall off the draft because you're the only one who can move around. And so you kind of, unless you're like actively watching where you are, what I've noticed is I'll look, kind of be like, oh, I'm not quite in that draft anymore. That's not great, because you try and take like a quicker line around a corner and then you come out of it and you're way to the left or right of the group. And then you're like, oh damn, like I'm out of that.
You do lose drafting corners. You do lose drafting corners.
Yeah.
That is true. You can, so if you quickly cut the corner and come back in, you can like, there's some corners you can use it well on, and other ones where like you actually, if the pack is going fast enough, you end up out the back. So like,
I think it like washes out a little bit. I think in the ride that they did that had Epic Climb, I think it's skewed a bit by saying like they rode a lot less, by the fact that, well, like it could be unfair because there's going to be no draft up Epic Climb for most of it. And they're going to be able to take really good lines around any of those corners because they'll literally cut every corner. And because you're going relatively slow, because you're going uphill, you can actually take a bit of time to practice your steering and cut corners. And then kind of similar on the downhill, you can take good corner lines.
Downhill, I think there's a pretty good argument there. Yeah, I think on the downhill, there's a pretty good argument.
So do I think it's fair in a race that has both? I think it depends on the course. It really depends on the course. But I don't know if it was the best. But I don't know how Zwift gets around it. Like, I don't know if it's the best thing to just default to steering in a race in a country that doesn't have the ability to get steering.
Yeah,
like from the plays, right?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that the option to open up keyboard or another option, you know, that like that's maybe a hassle, would make things more fair. Right? Like that would make things, at least I can do it if I really want to put the effort in, you know, kind of a thing. Because that does make things a little bit difficult then for those who just can't even access them. Like, fine, I'll pay you for this, but I can't get them. Shoot. Like, so if this is open to every country, I mean, if it's open to everybody, at least that you can do some sort of steering, then I think people would be a little bit more accepting of that reality. So yeah, that is, I agree with everything you said there.
It does kind of come back again to the ease for event organizers to customize events though. Like if there's literally a checkbox that says steering enabled and you can just check it, and take it on and off.
But then, okay, you got a curator thing going on there, right? Like, what's best for pushing things forward? And like, would the community like get comfortable and be like, we'll just keep turning it off? And there's kind of like, you create camps. And if you can turn it off, you create camps then of like steering versus not steering.
Oh, no. This is no. That's not what I mean. Like, because I can literally turn it off. I just have to email someone and say, turn it off.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm more meaning like,
okay.
Yeah. Like I can go to someone like, I don't want this on the event anymore. Can you make sure
it's turned off? Turned off.
Yeah. But so the point I'm making there is probably a different one, which is just I don't want to have to send an email. I want to just have to go. I just want to go into my event dashboard and be like, oh, that's a good point for the next race. Let's turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I can't do that, which is like super. I have to be like extra step. I don't like my extra steps.
I just want steering on all the time, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, I like it too.
I want everybody to be able to have access to it. So it's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Because to be fair, like when I looked at that, like I've got steering. I raced in this event in the first race and I was a little bit surprised that it was enabled. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm the only one in the women's field with steering.
Ooh, okay. And then you're kind of that person. You're that person.
I know. And I used it once in a way that advantaged me. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to like not touch it again. So
good on
like
you.
what I could do is like, I was in the front and I wanted the girl behind me to be in front of me. So I just like steered out to the far right and she like was forced to go ahead. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that feels good. So I'm like, not going to do that.
Yeah. On that front, I think, anyways, you said all that need to be said there, but I think one thing to pull out of all that too is that PD for the pack dynamics still work better than steering most of the time, and just rely on that to know that you're not at it. I think there is this kind of black and white thinking that like, oh, if I don't have it, I don't have some sort of advantage. But the pack dynamics do work fairly well for getting done what you need done amongst the pack. So, and I rely on them more sometimes, even when I have steering on, I just stop touching it, put my avatar in the right spot, and it does the work for me how I need it. So
I saw WTRL, their steering's not going to be enabled for the Zwift Racing League.
That's interesting. Interesting. Well, and they obviously wanted to they want to move things forward. We don't need that. We don't need that right now almost, right?
Yeah, and I think Grand Prix may have it enabled, but they would have to have every single person with Zwift plays. Yeah,
they were talking about that, about making sure everybody would have Zwift play, which would be kind of cool. I think that'd be a good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good marketing tool at the top level.
Good
right?
promo. Absolutely.
Exactly. Like here's everybody using these and how they're used at the top level. I think that's a great idea. So, all right. Last up, everybody, real quickly, the pick of the week, the Nigerian cycling kit is in Zwift. I didn't know this actually. Is this actually?
No, it's not in Zwift.
No, okay. I was like, wait, is this in Zwift? Like, I was confused. Okay, so this is just.
I know. Sometimes I go with a jersey pick that I would love to have
see in Zwift. Okay, so this is like, okay, my apologies. This is Anna getting Nathan to say that. Getting Nathan to say that in front of everybody so that it gets put in.
Exactly. So for those listening, the Nigerian cycle kit that they've been rocking at the World Champs is like, it'll be polarizing, just like your training, but it is also awesome. So it's looks like a snake skin. It's kind of like jaggedy green, like bright green lines with jaggedy white lines just all over the entire kit. So I saw it in the track cycling. I was like, wow. So it's like full, like arm length, like down to the wrists. And then they had matching shoes, matching socks, matching glasses, matching gloves, like just this full blown look of some green and white snakes out there. Like, it's just like, awesome. Like, I'm also giving it a 9 out of 10. Like, I just think it's so crazy. And
I get an 8.5 here, 8.5 on that. I like it a lot.
I want to see it in Zwift. Get that one in there. I'm actually kind of like, maybe I'll just make that our like Riot team kit is like the green and white snake skin.
I like, if they did put it in Zwift, you'd have to go from helmet all the way to shoes though. Like really.
Oh,
it would
everything.
Have to be it would have to be the full kit to make it make sense. 100%. But it's a great kit. Let us know what you think. Rate it out of 1 to 10. Love to know. If you're listening afterwards to the podcast, you can shoot us a 1 to 10 over on the socials as well. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the new Coach's Corner. We'll be putting some feelers out there for the topic for next week as well. What are you up to this next week? Surgeries happen pretty quickly here. Is that right?
Yeah. So they brought it forward. Actually, they rang and were like, "Do you want to have it earlier?" I was like, "Yes, please," because then it'll give me more time to potentially be able to do ZRL at least the last 2 races of the first round. Yes, so that's on Wednesday. So I've got duathlon nationals on Sunday morning. So yeah, out to do a run, bike, run. Yeah. See how that kind of goes. I've been real hit and miss with my training, so this is going to.
We want to hear about it. We want to know how it goes.
And other than that, I'll be jumping on and doing some workouts, and I might just do like a race or something just to kind of get a whole bunch of crash training done before Wednesday.
Right on. Well, I've got Order Shore this weekend. If you're going to be in Ishpeming, Michigan, Nagani, Marquette, those are the 3 main places. Come say hi. Love to talk to you. We'll probably be hanging out after the event in Marquette, and we'll be doing a pre-ride on Friday. We're actually leaving in like 30 minutes to an hour. Head up there. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully come back with some good results. And then it's race every weekend. We're racing. We raced this past weekend. Now we're to shore. Then it's the last 2 Wars races. We can maybe talk a little bit about how we manage all of the training in the midst of all that to kind of sneak things in where we can and be really smart about using those zones that we just talked about. We'll talk about that probably next.
Do you know what we should do? Is we should put a vote on your Insta or something, the Zwift Community Live, on a couple of 3 topics, and then talk about them. Whichever one gets the most votes.
That's a super good idea. Yeah. We'll try and make sure that's like a certain day too that we put that out, so you can expect it, everybody. We'll try and make sure that that's a very specific day. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been Wrap episode. What episode? Are we on number 56 or 57? I think we hit it. Right? This is going to be, is that 57?
It's 57. I think so. Yeah.
I think we put the wrong number on it. All right. Well, it's episode number 57. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This will be uploaded on ZwiftCommunityLive.com as a podcast or anywhere that you download your podcast pretty quickly if you missed the live recording. We'll see you next week for episode number 58. And make sure to follow us on all those socials and catch up with us for more of the Coach's Corner next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. From Anna and I, as always, right on.